radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA, cutting through the haze with common sense, back-to-basics analysis, through the cliches that we're hearing spouted by the left, the instantaneous, almost instantaneous lurch against Second Amendment rights, your right to defend yourself, your God-given right to defend yourself, your family. As our framers understood, without that right protected, then we're just footsteps away from tyrannical rule over a free people. And we will not tolerate that. We won't tolerate it. We'll expose it. We'll tell you what's really going on behind the words of Elizabeth Warren. Well, there's time for prayer, that's for sure, but it's not enough. Actually, for a lot of Americans, millions and millions of Americans, it sustains them, Senator. Prayer does sustain a people. And because of your party, we've pushed God out of the schools. We've pushed radical social transformation into the schools. And without an understanding of basic right and wrong, what real virtue, a real life, what is life, protecting life, what does that mean in American society today? Without an understanding of those basics, there will be chaos. And evil does exist for which there is no government solution. But don't you dare try to turn this on the law-abiding citizens of this country who have a God-given right to defend themselves. They're not bothering anyone. In fact, a lot of those gun owners that the Democrats are railing against were the ones who saved lives at that Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, where we saw the horrific loss of life at the hands of an individual whose motives are bizarrely unclear. A lot of questions here that we don't really have answers to. The police came out last night, and the sheriff's department, the sheriff in charge of course, Las Vegas, Lombardo, came out again last night and said, look, they don't see any connection to terrorism. People who knew the assassin said he had no real political or religious viewpoint. I have a question about that. Who do you know who has no religious or political viewpoint? What, the Dalai Lama? I mean, he has a religious, actually, viewpoint. Who doesn't have a religious or political?
No, this is all very murky.
Does anyone else find this explanation, or not a non-explanation, to be unsatisfying? And maybe that is just what it is. It's just unsatisfying.
And we're dealing with a millionaire, had multiple residences, sent monies off to the Philippines, tens of thousands of dollars. The woman he lived with was apparently abroad when this shooting went down.
Conveniently.
It's a very curious string of circumstances. And again, we're all waiting for answers. But in the meantime, you have these people rushing into the void here. Jimmy Kimmel being celebrated today in the New York Times. I'm going to read
shocker.
this to you.
Jimmy Kimmel, who took Trump on for the Obamacare repeal efforts.
Right.
And Jimmy Kimmel...
And saw a rating spike.
And he saw a rating spike. He saw, again, when we seek the approval of men, this is what... he's seeking the approval of the elite men and women out there, and he's getting it. Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know Jimmy Kimmel. Might be the greatest guy ever. I don't know him. But he turned this Obamacare discussion, which is complex and probably a little bit beyond his entertainment understanding, but nevertheless, he got the applause. Oh, Jimmy, you're the conscience of America.
Right. This is what the New York Times says today.
We got to play the soundbite.
Let me do the setup.
Okay,
You'll love this.
Right.
It says, Mr. Kimmel used plain, pointed language while acting as a social conscience as he called out politicians, the NRA, and complacent citizens like you, Laura Ingraham.
Oh, we're complacent. Yeah, we're complacent because Jimmy Kimmel, who's protected by handlers, security, and whatever, I don't even know what network.
A band, a team of writers, ABC,
I mean,
Disney.
He's the most insulated of anyone. Of course, he's not worried about anything going down. Like, Jimmy Kimmel's like taken care of. The rest of the people have to fend for themselves, though. The rest of America, the rest of you have to fend for yourselves. But the elites in Manhattan, where we are right now, broadcasting at Fox News, Well, they don't understand. They never understood the people. This is why they all got the election wrong. They think that rushing to the microphones after Vegas is going to deliver them approval, electoral gains. You know what I say to them? Try it. Go ahead, try it. You want legislation to what? What do you want legislation to do that would have prevented this? Tell me about your legislation. When you start probing them, and this morning it was on MSNBC and Morning Joe, this Congressman Simes, S-I-M-E-S, from my home state of Connecticut, embarrassed himself. It was a terrible embarrassment. And send him an orchid or something, Alexis. He needs a cheer-upper. he had a bad morning for him. But when you're stumped by Willie Geist, it's a bad morning. Willie Geist said, "Well, we understand your passion, but tell us what would this actually have? What
would you specifically do?
What would be in your legislation?" And it's like the total duck of the day. He says, "Well, that's not the point. Whether my legislation would have prevented this really isn't the point." I said, "Well, yes, it actually is the point." And he goes on, twists himself up into this pretzel. Universal background check would not have stopped this. The machine guns are already banned except for grandfathered in. He didn't have a machine gun. Contrary to early reports, it doesn't look like he had a machine gun. He had a modified semi-automatic with it's an extender clip that allows you to shoot fast. The reports today on the Today Show was that it wasn't a fully automatic weapon. Do you see how the early reports were all wrong? And so he goes on, and none of the stuff he said would have stopped the shooting, except an all-out confiscation of, if that were even possible, which is not. We have 80 million gun owners in the United States. Not possible. So he's caught in this corner. But they emote, and they feel like they're in the moment. We care, and red state America does not care. With all your guns, and all you love your Second Amendment, you're clinging to your God and your guns and your faith and your Bible. None of you feel. None of you feel. We'll get to the Kimmel sound in a moment.
Yeah, here's my question. Why in Hartford, in Boston, in Chicago these
DC.
Places have D.C. enormous
Baltimore.
gun restrictions. You can't have a gun in D.C. You can't carry it in your car when you're driving.
Well, no, the Supreme Court's hearing that case, by the way.
But look at the murder rates and the crime, particularly in the inner cities. Something grieves America's heart that we need to address. Not the externals, but the internals.
Internals of what's happening in our country.
And we can't only weep, frankly, when white people die.
No.
There are a lot of black youths who are dying on the street, too, and we never talk about them.
Mike Barnacle today, again, this is stuff that you don't watch, but I watch it so you don't have to. But it's a window into the thinking of the left, and it reminds me of why they keep losing. Why do they keep losing? Because Mike Barnacle said, and he's kind of a little bit more reasonable than a lot of the other Democrats, and he said, well, the Chicago's different because in Chicago there's a motive for the killings. Like what? Wait a second. Over a weekend you can have 36 people shot in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, the motive thing is an interesting question. Like, what motivates you? Is it passion, drugs, money? But it's killing. Yeah, and if the focus is guns, well, who cares about the motive? The focus is guns. If you think taking guns is going to solve this problem, then why are you even thinking about motive at all? Why are you thinking about motive? And I want to know more about the, quote, no faith and no politics. Something about this smells to me. I mean, it just doesn't seem like we're getting all the information. I don't know what the information is, but boy, were they quick to come out and say, no faith. No, the man had no clear faith concern and no clear political concern.
Yeah, the brother said this yesterday, and the brother struck me as a little odd. He's laughing in between. Oh, well, this hit me like an asteroid. Your brother just slayed 59 people.
I'd be on my knees crying. I mean,
I wouldn't have come out. I'd be so in
people who like to come out and and turn this into their own personal platform for elevating their brand.
Speaking of that,
Jimmy Kimmel. Let's listen to the
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, a number of other lawmakers who won't do anything about this because the NRA has their balls in a money clip, also sent their thoughts and their prayers today, which is good. Reaction. They should be praying. They should be praying for God to forgive them for letting the gun lobby run this country.
So again, evil of actually deciding you're going to kill all those people it merely exists because of the evil in your heart. You see, you're evil. What he's really saying is the evil in America is all you people who vote for these Republicans and this handful of Democrats who stand up for gun rights. So Hollywood does this. The entertainment industry does this all the time. This is not the only instance in which they turn the table on the regular, just working class people of this country who don't commit crimes. They don't have handlers. They don't have their own security. They don't have a driver every day to take them to one air-conditioned studio to a palatial home in Connecticut. They don't. That's not what they have, Jimmy. So they don't have that, Jimmy. What they have is their family, their faith. Some of them have proficiency in self-defense. Some of them have proficiency in gun use. And they don't shoot up people. They don't wish ill on anybody. But they don't want to be demonized by someone who stands on a perfectly quaint and luxurious perch in the entertainment industry. 855-40-LAURA. I am so tired of being lectured on the ways of the world by the entertainment industry when they profit off of the numbing of young people to the most grisly and gory violence. They make tens of billions of dollars a year in supporting the gaming industry, the video games. Now it's virtual reality. Imagine what that's going to bring to our young people.
My gosh, Fast and Furious 12, all these, it's all carnage all day long. And then we're going to get on our pious, puritanical
at 11 o'clock at night and say, oh, I have the answers? Well, Jimmy, it's a suggestion for Jimmy Kimmel. Again, I don't want to pass judgment on Jimmy Kimmel, who he is. Just don't lecture the rest of the country. If you want to run for office, if you want to get behind a movement to control the purchase and the owning of firearms, then I suggest Jimmy Kimmel begin that campaign in earnest. He should resign from his position as a late-night TV host, and he should become a full-time advocate for the Center for Prevent Handgun Violence, the Brady campaign, whatever, stophandgunviolence.com, whatever it is. He should devote his full time to understanding the issue. Because right now, he has the luxury of skating on the surface. He's about an inch deep when it comes to these topics. And you get away with that with a late-night crowd. They're all clap.
They weren't even clapping till the end when he had to cry. And it was very moving.
Yeah, you're crying. Okay,
moving.
Fine. It was very moving.
When someone with a beard attacks us, we tap phones, we invoke travel bans, we build walls, we take every possible precaution to make sure it doesn't happen again. But when an American buys a gun and kills other Americans, then there's nothing we can do about that. Second Amendment, I guess. Our forefathers wanted us to have AK-47s, is the argument, I assume.
Oh, my God, that is... You don't even know what to say. I mean, it's just so idiotic.
Imagine in another era, Gene Kelly getting up, and in the middle of what we thought would be a dance break, he decided to just play soapbox public square.
Well, I want to talk about the Lend-Lease program afterward. No, Potsdam really didn't get it right.
Not what we came for. Not what we came for. This is in the not what we came for file.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA, the unending lecture by the elites. There's another one we're going to point out. Again, pulling the curtain back for you so you see what's happening on the real stage. The real stage is they want to use tragedy in order to take and snatch your God-given rights away from you. And another elite, writing, of course, in the New York Times, calls conservative populism a pathway to bigotry in the Republican Party. David Brooks lays out his cliche-ridden philosophy above the fold in the op-ed section of the New York Times. Guess what? Billionaire at the Barricades, the populist revolution from Reagan to Trump, lands next Tuesday. And that will land like nirvana for all of you who want you just want to feel better about what you did on Election Day and why the populist movement is growing worldwide. You're going to understand that when you read this book. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. The tour schedule is up on lauraingraham.com and also on Facebook. We'll be in New York next week. We'll also be in Philadelphia. You can get your tickets to our Philadelphia event a week from this Thursday, but get your tickets now. They're selling out fast. A lot of the premium tickets are already sold out, but you can go on the website. Philadelphia, then I'll be at Liberty University. We'll be at the Myrtle Beach Barnes & Noble on next Friday, so a week from this Friday. the Barnes & Noble in Myrtle Beach, and then we have a lot more events. So just go to our Facebook page or lauraingraham.com if you want to come out and see us. We're going to have a great time for America. Don't go away. I've been telling you for weeks that we need men and women like you to enlist in our nationwide campaign to pressure Congress to pass the tax cuts that we voted for when we elected Donald Trump to drain the swamp in Washington. Here's the good news. Hundreds of thousands of you have already gone to taxcutsnow.com and signed up. But we still need more signatures to ratchet up the pressure on Congress. The average tax cut under the Trump plan is over $2,000 per family. That may not be real money in Washington, but it's real money to you. Money you can spend on the things you care about. And if you haven't yet signed on, please take less than a minute to join our cause. And then share the link to taxcutsnow.com with your family, friends, church members, and coworkers. Send a message to Washington that business as usual will not cut it. Senator McConnell and Speaker Ryan need to hear from you loud and clear. You want your tax cuts, and you want them now, not next year, this year. Go to taxcutsnow.com. That's Tax Cuts Now. Back on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA, the never-ending lecture by the Hollywood and entertainment elites of ordinary Americans who buy the products that they push mercilessly in their commercial breaks. Everyone's tired of it. But the elite media will elevate it time and again, as real Americans are saving people right now. In Puerto Rico, they're saving people and helping people in Houston, and the Florida Keys, and now in Vegas. I suggest all these Hollywood elites get in the bloodline to donate blood. Okay, they can all line up to donate blood, and then they can run for office. Joe in Michigan, go ahead.
Everyone's asking why this guy did it, and it's really fascinating, and no one can figure it out. But my answer to that is, when was the last time this guy went to church? Probably never. When was the last time this guy prayed? Probably never, maybe years. What does he do? He exists kind of by himself to serve himself. He's not married.
Spiritual vacuum. A vacuum.
Spiritual vacuum. So in his mind, it's like, why not? And he
why not? I mean, there's nothing holding him back. Nothing holding him back. I mean, there's no. Again, it's not that people who go to church never do wrong. They do. Religious people commit all sorts of sins and murder people.
It's that they know they're doing wrong.
They know they're doing. There's no moral center. And in our society, up is down, left is right. I mean, black is white. I mean, whatever. There are no rules.
Well, that's why the prattlings of Jimmy Kimmel ring hollow.
All right, we have to take a break. Don't go away. Oh, I have great news, ladies and gentlemen. Chamonix has extended their crazy Genucell warehouse sale. You call them right now and you get double the order of Genucell for free. Genucell is a natural plant stem cell treatment with advanced peptides. Those pesky bags and puffiness under the eyes. And with Genucell's immediate effects, you're going to see amazing results. Call now, you get double your order of Genucell free. And it's backed by the best customer service in the business. It's an ironclad 60-day money-back guarantee. But we're not finished. You call now, you get a 2-month supply of the legendary Deep Firming Serum, also free. Next 20 minutes, you get free 2-month supply of Esotique RF. So guess what? You get basically 4 gifts free. Can't go wrong. It's awesome. 800-480-5206 is the number. 800-480-5206. Or go to Genucell.com. And remember, these supplies will not last. This deal will not last. It's the best of the year. Order now, and the shipping is also free. Call them, 800-480-5206. On television is so staggering. I mean, it's always staggering, but in a situation like this, it really comes to the fore. Joining us now, of course, former LAPD Detective Mark Furman, expert on reaction to these types of horrific events and commentary that follows. It's reflexive almost. The Democrats go for the guns, and they blame Red State America for putting up with gun violence for as long as they do. Joining us now is Mark Furman. Mark, great to talk to you. How are you?
Thank you, Laura.
Go ahead. Respond to that soundbite, if you would.
I'm just shaking my head. And people will never understand that people that either live a life of crime or decide to commit a horrific crime or any crime of violence, the prohibition of legally walking into a gun store is not going to deter them one bit. There is enough ways to get illegal weapons in other countries, in other places. There's black markets. It's not going to stop anything except for the law-abiding citizen who goes by the law.
Well, the Democrat response is always the same in a shooting like this. They first blame America's gun culture, and then they blame Republicans for being bought and paid for by the NRA, and that the NRA, as Jimmy Kimmel said, it has your blanks in a vice, and the NRA is running the country, said Jimmy Kimmel.
It's just it's such ignorance. You look at America, one of the youngest countries in the world, one of the most successful democracies, if not the most successful democracy, and it was formed because we had modern weapons. It was part of our history. It is part of our culture. It is part of who we are as Americans to protect ourselves against tyranny. That is what we based our revolution on. And to say that all the good people mean nothing that own guns, that do nothing, but criminals that have guns somehow represent the other 99.999% of the country is absurd. But they have a goal. They have a mission. They don't have guns. They don't like guns. They don't shoot, they don't hunt, they don't compete, so they don't want anybody else to have any.
Did you think it odd, Mark, that the police so quickly ruled out a number of things? They immediately, like within hours, they said, oh, he's a lone wolf. They then said there's no connection to terrorism. It's just now taken as gospel, odd phrasing on my part, but taken as truth that he had no political or religious views at all. That's kind of strange. And meanwhile, we don't know nothing about any social media history. So they're very forthcoming on certain details, but other details, it's all very murky. Something seems just kind of strange about this.
I think this guy is different than any shooting, any mass shooting that we've ever had. It kind of gave me the creeps at the level of preparation, what he did. It's almost like he's setting up something to be seen in a way, even though he's dead, it's like he's speaking. Perhaps he set up his house so it was all available right there. Everything was laid out. So there was no encrypted computer. There was no trying to hide, scrub anything. Maybe it was all just laid out so they could say, well, there was nothing on his social media. There was nothing at his house. There was no manifesto. There was no associations. There was no, radical groups. There was no liberal group. There was nothing. Mm-hmm. It might be him laying out everything so they don't even have to do very much work.
Yeah, we always look for motives, or with Dylan Klebold or Sandy Hook shooter. They were isolated kids who played a lot of video games, and one on the spectrum, and kind of abused by his mother or isolated by his mother. You can not see it, but you can't understand it, but you kind of get it. But in this case, it's an odd deal, very odd. Well,
there was an axe to grind at every one of these. There was some problem they had with people, with lifestyles, with their life, with the way people treated them, bullying. It doesn't matter what. There was something that they perceived in every single one of these, even homegrown terrorists. There is something they perceived. And this guy looks like he had no problems. He had money. He had, time. He had hobbies, family. There didn't seem to be anything, no affiliations with church or government or anything. But he does seem to fit a profile. There was a forensic psychiatrist on Fox and Friends this morning, and you might have even talked to him. He said something very interesting, that this guy is too old to try to be making a name for himself by doing this, but he fits this profile of somebody that is trying to stimulate something in his act. In other words, did this guy set all this up, this ridiculous amount of guns in his room, ridiculous amount of guns at his home, to make a point? Was this about guns?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, bad analogy, but it's overkill. Like, it's almost like he wants the narrative to be about the guns. He wanted the narrative to be about the guns. You're just like, I'm spinning out theories. Who knows what really is the case? But
I think you're right, though. When you have 18 guns in a hotel room and you have one man, even if he's running from gun to gun to gun, it doesn't make any sense. He had probably a fully auto assault rifle there that all he had to do was just keep loading magazines into it. Yet he has 18 guns. There's a statement there somewhere.
It's odd too, because we heard that it was fully auto. Now it's not clear that if there was any fully automatic weapons. It looks like he had the AR with that slight modification that you still have to trigger pull, but you can trigger pull faster than right. I mean, so that looks like that's what he had. The reporting has been confusing.
It's called a slide fire, and it's legal, and you put it on the receiver, and once you pull it, the recoil of the weapon actually now
fires it,
speeds up the trigger. So, you could almost hear it wasn't a complete fully auto, M4 platform. It wasn't firing quite fast enough, but a lot faster than semi-automatic. It had kind of an interesting report when you heard the sound. But that slide fire, to have that on there will be a rally point if that's what was on there, if that was the modification, because there's been a lot of people that have been trying to get that on the illegal list in firearms. But, let's go back to one thing. You have one semi-automatic rifle that is set up to actually lay down a lot of rounds in a short period of time. And then the other rifles, the sheriff said there were scoped rifles in there. What is the point of having all these weapons in there? It seems like maybe 2 assault rifles and a few thousand rounds would have actually accomplished his mission, but yet he has all these other weapons, cameras in the hallway. I mean, over-prepared to make sure that he wasn't taken alive, and over-prepared that when they actually searched that room, they were shocked by the amount of weapons that were in there.
Well, Donald Trump, minutes ago, said that we'll talk about gun laws as time goes by. We actually have it. Let's listen.
What happened in Las Vegas is in many ways a miracle. The police department has done such an incredible job, and we'll be talking about gun laws as time goes by.
I didn't like hearing that. Maybe he just wants to put it off, but I didn't like that reflexive answer.
Well, no, and it's so general it could mean anything. But when we talk about his motive, I hope they find a brain tumor in there so we can at least target something that said, well, his judgment was flawed because of this. But if we don't find that, you're never going to know what his mental state was. But certainly we can say that he had a mental defect in planning this attack and executing it. So if we were going to do anything, we should probably approach the mental angle of gun possession, not just a blanket statement that this is now illegal.
Again, I like to look beyond the headlines and the general descriptions of what we're seeing in some of the media accounts here to ask some just questions that a common sense, look at this. I think the questions arise. One of the questions, we're talking to Mark Furman here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Last night at 6:45 in the evening, the Washington Post reported that the police chief Lombardo, said that weapons that had been recovered range in caliber from a .223, which is used in a lot of ARs, AR-15s, and the .308, which is used in a lot of hunting rifles. But then he said he was unsure if any of the weapons were automatic. That's also kind of, I mean, what do you mean you're unsure? The weapons were in the room. I mean, anyone who knows guns, I mean, I could look at them and say, okay, this, not, I mean, I grew up with guns. I could tell you which one's automatic. How do we not know? We know all this. We know there's no terrorism. We know he has no faith. We has no, and all this stuff, but they can't say at 6:45 last night. I find that to be another strange point. Am I looking into this in too, maybe I'm too suspicious here, but I find that to be odd.
They just haven't test fired them. They're going to give them to the ATF to test fire, and then once they test fire them, they're going to break them down and find out if they are automatic.
So you can't. So yeah. So Mark, you couldn't have you couldn't have figured that out on the scene.
Well, the only way you could actually tell just by looking at a weapon is if it was a military weapon and it has a selector switch.
Right.
For auto or
fully
semi.
auto or semi.
Correct. If it is a civilian receiver of like an M4 platform,
yep,
you'd have to not only test fire it to see how it actually cycles the rounds, but then you would have to break it down to see if it was manufactured as an automatic weapon or it was altered in somebody's garage or machine shop.
I got it. So if they confiscated the weapons quickly, you would imagine they would confiscate the weapons fairly quickly. I mean, this is the biggest tragedy and a mass shooting we've had in American society. I just would have thought that within 18 hours of the event occurring, you would have been able to figure this out. But okay, then I stand corrected. It seems odd.
I think they are so busy. I mean, they still have a homicide scene that they're cleaning up. It's just down the line that it's really not necessary.
Okay.
And ATF will do the, and then, by the way, the 308 is also used in the M4 platform. So you can have something that looks like an AR-15 that's a 308.
Got it.
There's several other calibers.
And Mark, OJ's release, got to ask you, of course, Vegas was the scene where OJ was released after, 8-9 years in the pen. He's released, and all the media was there for the OJ release. What are your thoughts?
OJ got released? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's kind of embarrassing that America is still fascinated by a man that loves to have people shine a camera on him and act like he's still somebody. I think maybe everybody should get a dose of intelligence and ignore this man for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Mark Furman, it's always great to have you on. Thank you so much for your analysis of the situation. Very interesting commentary about what this killer wanted to leave behind and planned to leave behind. Was there some message in all of this? He went overboard with 23 guns now. First it was 9, then it was 12, now it's 23 guns that were in the hotel room. Why? What would you do with 23 guns? What was he trying to say? Anything? What's the message here, if anything? The evil exists. Back on the Laura Ingraham Show, a lot of questions remaining about this Philippines connection, the money that the assailant, the murderer, sent to the Philippines. We got a raging Islamist insurgency there with Abu Sayyaf. Patrick, Georgia, go ahead.
Laura, thank God for you. America appreciates you. I think you and Mark hit the nail on the head, and I think you just directed the impact of what is so necessary. It's the totality of all the circumstances and all the factors, and I think the link with his girlfriend, which we haven't heard anything about, is the totality of it all.
Well, I think we'll learn more. If we have reporters worth of salt, we'll learn more.
Joe Scarborough of Calcutta there. Suddenly he's the moral barometer of the United States.
Okay. Wink, wink.
But listening to this, it does bring to mind something that's so important, critical. The actions, the words, and the images that you and I talk about every day and bring to people's attention, and they say, well, why are you talking about that movie, or why are you talking about that singer, or why are you making light of that rapper? I'll tell you why. Because the cumulative impact of that kind of cultural toxic waste, the visuals that our children see, the books they're reading about bondage and replacing that for love, the 50 Shades of Grey and all that crap, This contributes to a darkened heart of our society.
Yep.
And then you get crazy people, mentally disturbed people, people with an axe to grind, and they explode inside somewhere. And it's these images, the hate, the hot talk, all the vitriol spewed, the political bloodbath. They imbibe all of that, and it propels and drives them to these mad acts. And then we want to wring hands or point the finger at our political enemies. That's the most facile analysis.
Yeah.
If words have that impact, what is the impact of celebrity, visuals, crude and violent movies and images and film and music? The power of all of that to change the heart of man is profound, and it replaces the things that matter.
And it's nice to hear Joe Scarborough talk about A Course in Culture. Conservatives have only been talking about the Course in Culture since, I don't know, 1966.
But we repair that culture by our own example, by our own selflessness, by our own determination to do what is right in spite of how it feels. Sometimes doing right doesn't feel well. Mother Teresa was like in a hole for 50 years. Didn't even feel God's presence. 50 years. Read those diaries. You want to weep reading them.
Yeah.
So here we think, oh, this saint. It's not always the way. Not always the way. Sometimes we're called to something higher and it hurts. Goodness hurts sometimes, but it's necessary for our endurance, for the future of our children. And we're selfish people. We're a selfish, consumerist people. We're only worried about ourselves. And then you get this lunatic who puts a cache of guns up in his room at the Mandalay Bay and decides to open fire on innocents. This is kind of a picture of the culture.
Yeah.
Crazy people feeding on a culture.
Well, godless. I will say, right. Apparently his family says he was without God. He was without politics. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't believe that.
There's something about this story that just seems to me to be there's something missing in this picture of this man that we're not getting. I mean, it's right to say he snapped. Well, did he snap? Boy, he planned this out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
That's not someone who snapped.
No.
That's someone who has a very dark, beyond dark heart. And Mark Furman said this just moments ago on this show, that if you didn't know anything else about him, you would think he was leaving behind a message for us about what? I mean, maybe about guns, about, who knows, gambling? Maybe there is a political something. Who knows? I'm not ruling anything out. A lot of people are ruling things out. I'm not ruling anything out.
Well, in moments of passion, in moments when you snap, you revert to what you are and what you've done throughout your life.
Yeah.
And if you've only fed your own appetites and given in to them, you're going to lash out and do something horrible.
Gambling, real estate, losing billions, making billions. He had a relationship.
Checkered history.
Yeah, with this woman, again, conveniently out of the country. So he had a relationship with this woman. Again, a 64-year-old Stephen Paddock, lived in Mesquite, Nevada. He had residences elsewhere as well. He was worth more than $1 million, a couple $1 million, it looks like. And his brother said he was just a guy who liked to go to Vegas. Let's listen.
He doesn't even have parking tickets. He has no criminal record. He has no record of any affiliations. He has nothing.
What about mental illness?
That I know of. Absolutely not.
Do you think that could be?
As far as I know, once again, nothing like that. He was a wealthy guy, and he liked to play video poker. He went on cruises. He sent his mother cookies from, big, huge, crazy boxes of cookies and stuff.
He's a little too chirpy. Something wrong with the brother, too. Sorry, the brother seems odd. I'm just giving you my common sense reaction to him. Odd. Was it not? My antennae are going up about this. I find this whole thing to be
there's
strange,
a lot we don't know.
Strange. Crazy, would you say crazy boxes of cookies? Like, can you imagine if this were your family? I would be under a desk somewhere just weeping and sobbing. I know everyone reacts to things differently, and maybe that's just the way this guy reacts, but he's not living in the same community as his brother. How does he know his brother had no parking tickets? I find that
he's on the other side of the country.
He's a little too quick to say, oh, he had no parking. Some cookies. Like he had this patter down. He had it down. The parking tickets, cookies. He had the whole list down. Odd. How did he know he had no medical issues, no mental issues? Was he on prescription drugs? Do we know that if it was on any prescription medication?
No, they'll know now. They've been in the house.
Well, let's hear about what they found in the house. We still haven't heard about any. So no social media, nothing. The man had nothing except he liked to play video poker, and he had this.
Hung out at clubs in Reno and
Vegas. His father was on the FBI's most wanted list. Father was a complete nutbag. He was on the most wanted list, as I said, and yeah, it's odd. It's just something. So he lived in this residence in Mesquite with his 62-year-old girlfriend, this Mary Lou Danley, the same woman that police announced they were seeking to question. They haven't gotten her back to the United States. You don't think she's in Japan traveling? She's of Philippine descent. She's still not back in the United States. Like, Japan's one of our closest allies. You don't think they can get her on a plane and get her back to the United States quickly? I think if we have to fly there, get her back. You get her back. You get her back to the United States. We're going to find out what the heck was going on here. Why was he sending tens of thousands of dollars to the Philippines? Maybe he supported an orphanage in the Philippines? Then we should find that out. Maybe he helped her family. Maybe. Okay, let's just find that out. Let's get that trail of money. So they're looking. I guess they had. Did they have a brief conversation with her? She's a person of interest. She's just a nice lady, who is his girlfriend, said this brother that you just heard. He lives across the country. He's not his brother's keeper. He doesn't know what his brother's up to. So she's Filipino, and just as a side note, I've been covering this for, 18 years, but this is conflict inside of the Philippines between the Abu Sayyaf, that radical Islamist group, and the government of Duterte. This has been a mess in the Philippines for many years. Remember, they kidnapped and took for ransom those missionaries, American missionaries, years ago. I think that was one of the first stories I covered on radio. So you got the Muslim separatists, you got the Islamic Liberation Front, Abu Sayyaf, and they're the breakaway factions from the Moro National Liberation Front, the MNLF. So he sent lots of money over there.
Mm-hmm. Tens of thousands of dollars.
Again, maybe it's to her family. Maybe she had family that was in trouble. I mean, who knows? It could have been that, but just odd.
Well, the Philippines is a very divided place. I mean, you have a Muslim faction there that is ISIS aligned. You remember recently that city of Marawi was overrun, and I've been reporting on that for weeks. And then they had to send in the guard, and basically, they've been taking it back block by block, but. There are a lot of curious connections here, and we don't have any answers about this guy. And in the rush to create new gun laws and restrict gun purchases, we really don't know anything about the guy who instigated this whole thing, who's behind it all.
There's a big illegal drug trade in the Philippines as well. This proliferation of illegal drugs also has links to the Abu Sayyaf group. I don't know. There's something is just very strange. He also his family was into crime. His father was a deranged man who did live with for a period of time. You don't know. I mean, so there's evil. I said this last night. I said it this morning. There's evil in the world. There's evil in the hearts of men. But I refuse to be lectured by the Hollywood elites and the Democrats who failed this country. And policy after policy have driven Americans into this desperate state of that they can't support themselves. The middle class lifestyle is eroded. People feel hopeless, helpless, isolated. Not him, but I'm just talking in general. I'm tired of being lectured by these people. Jimmy Kimmel, Ellen, the whole crowd. Tired of it. People want a free and independent life. They want government that works for them. They don't want government to consider them the enemy. In a crisis, the people aren't the enemy. The people need basic assistance. People need to help each other out. You see this in Las Vegas with the lines to donate blood. That community is coming together. It is a horrific moment for our country. This is horrific. And it's especially horrible. People were People were there having a great time. We're going to talk to John Rich in a few moments because, he was performing just an hour before the attack, and it was such a beautiful moment, singing "God Bless America." And that video only came out last night on Hannity with all the cell phone camera lights on, and you have to think, there are 59 fewer lights, and there are hundreds of people now injured who were holding up those lights at that wonderful moment of unity. He was 400 yards away. It's a long distance. 400 yards away from the concert, from the outdoor setting, from his hotel room. And he set this up in a dramatic fashion, having 23 guns. One man, 23 guns. Isn't that... What was his... was there a message? Mark Furman seemed to indicate that he wanted to leave behind this trail of guns. And this conversation would live on after he killed himself, which he obviously planned to do. He wasn't going to be taken alive, but he had to bring all those guns and set up the shot with the tripod that he could, the gun stand that he could use to get the accuracy down. 855-40 Laura. One of the more facile columns and the most pedestrian analysis that we could imagine, of course, shows up today in the New York Times. David Brooks, who despises Trump, despises conservative populism. It's a perfect time to take this on with the book coming out on Tuesday, Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump, where I trace the modern-day rise of the movement for sovereignty, independence, power to the people, government returning power to the people, and why it works when done right, why it works. But the elites, they're afraid of that popular. Oh, they don't like it. They don't like it because the people are empowered. The elites are the elite. That's fine, but the people are in charge. They're not a small merry band of elites. The people are in charge. And if they want to elect a guy who shakes it up, he's not perfect, he tweets too much, he says, okay, guess what? That's the reaction to what the bipartisan establishment did to America. Trump is the reaction to their failure. And they kind of went with a wild card. Yeah. They dropped that wild card down and they said, let's play now. Let's play a new game. 855-40 Laura. We'll take a break. Donald Trump heading down to Puerto Rico, as the political situation there has also gotten kind of ugly in recent days. But he's going there, and, no good deed goes unpunished. He'll be criticized for not talking to more people who are complaining or something. I mean, they'll never end. And he's also heading to Las Vegas after that. So we'll bring you all those stories and a lot more. A lot of you are emailing in, when are you coming to my hometown for the book tour? The book tour thus far, the dates thus far are set. And they're on our Facebook page and on lauraingraham.com. The cities so far are Philadelphia, Oklahoma City, Las Vegas, Phoenix, West Palm Beach, will be in New York City,
and Myrtle Beach.
And
on the
Liberty
website,
University.
Particularly October 12th, that Philadelphia event, it's filling up fast.
Yeah.
So if you want in on that, go to the website.
Yeah.
Go to lauraingraham.com.
It's next week, and it's I can't believe it's next week.
I know, it's like
a week from Thursday in Philadelphia. It's going to be a wonderful night. I'm looking forward to it so much, and I want to see all of you out there. We have a lot of great listeners in the Philly area, and I want to see as many of you as possible. A lot of you listen on Laura 365. You listen on our local stations. We want you there. We want you to support the effort for American freedom, independence, and the conservative populist agenda.
And Oklahoma City on the 16th, Phoenix on the 17th, Las Vegas on the 18th. And Myrtle Beach, that same Friday, rather.
October
Friday
13th.
the 13th.
Yeah, Friday the 13th at Myrtle Beach. Whoops. Myrtle Beach, and also at Liberty University. We'll be going to the Values Voters Summit in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, October 14th. The information on that, the specifics, I'm not sure if that's up on the site yet. We're still working out the details of that. But
October 23rd at the Forum Club in West Palm Beach.
At the Forum Club. So we have a lot of people we're gonna hit a lot more cities once the TV show starts. But for now, this is where we are. I had to cancel a bunch of events, obviously, because the show's launching. But I want to see as many of you out there. It's been a long time since we wrote Of the I Zing and the Obama Diaries. It's been about 4 years since the last book came out, and I want to see as many of you as possible. You really light up my day. You light up You light up my whole sensibility day after day. If it's not for you, I don't do any of this. So please come up. Please come out if you can. You're gonna love the book. You're gonna just absolutely love the book. All right, we're gonna take a break. Billionaire at the Barricades, on sale now. Pre-order. You get it in your mail next week. If you want to order it on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, it'll arrive on Tuesday. I've been telling you for weeks that we need men and women like you to enlist in our nationwide campaign to pressure Congress to pass the tax cuts that we voted for when we elected Donald Trump to drain the swamp in Washington. Here's the good news. Hundreds of thousands of you have already gone to taxcutsnow.com and signed up. But we still need more signatures to ratchet up the pressure on Congress. The average tax cut under the Trump plan is over $2,000 per family. That may not be real money in Washington, but it's real money to you. Money you can spend on the things you care about. And if you haven't yet signed on, please take less than a minute to join our cause. And then share the link to taxcutsnow.com with your family, friends, church members, and coworkers. Send a message to Washington that business as usual will not cut it. Senator McConnell and Speaker Ryan need to hear from you loud and clear. You want your tax cuts, and you want them now, not next year, this year. Go to taxcutsnow.com. That's taxcutsnow.com.
Hey, Laura, here's one thing I want you to start to do your math. You're a very smart woman. I've listened to you for years. One loaded 30-round 5.56 magazine, which is what they said that he had, weighs 2 pounds. Let's take into account that the HRT team that entered the room, I have sources that are there in Las Vegas, did engage with the suspect. They tell you that he committed suicide, but there were 2 fixed shooting positions that were 22 feet apart. Each window is 22 feet apart. You're meaning to tell me that a 64-year-old retired real estate multimillionaire who has a gambling addiction had enough wherewithal to be able to sneak that many hundreds of pounds of ammunition, magazines, rifles into a major casino?
By himself. Hold on. We're going to continue with you. Hold on. A lot more questions remaining. Car Shield is just a godsend. If you have a car that's out of its manufacturer's warranty, you don't want to get hammered by these ridiculous repair bills. Your transmission blows, something with your engine block, or maybe it's a sensor. One of those sensors can cost $800,000. Everything's computerized. You don't want to be out of pocket. It's a complete nightmare. You don't want to deal with that. And so with Car Shield, guess what? You call them, you sign up, become a member, and you're not out of pocket. You know, you got your deductible that may apply, but you're not out of pocket. You get the mechanic to be paid directly, your dealership, whichever you choose, but they get paid directly. So forget all of that nightmare with the reimbursements and all of that. And the reason I love it is because, look, a lot of us like to hold on to our cars. We don't like to get new cars every couple of years when insurance costs more and personal property tax costs more. So you don't want to replace it like you replace a cell phone. You want to hold on to your car. So Car Shield is the way to go. I'm a proud member, and I know you will be too. All you need to do, and it's very easy, you just call 800-CAR-6100. That's 800-CAR-6100. Mention the code Laura, you get 10% off. You can also go to carshield.com, code Laura. Last night, I saw that cell phone video for the first time, and that was Big and Rich performing about an hour before at that Route 91 Harvest Music Festival in Las Vegas on Sunday night. And everybody had their cell phone lights on, they were holding them up, and it stood in such stark and beautiful contrast to a lot of the negativity and the complaining and the grousing we've been hearing from some professional athletes during the Star Spangled Banner played at various professional sporting events. It was just a wonderful moment of unity. I hadn't seen it before, and so when I saw it on the set of Hannity after John Rich was on, I followed him. I got teared up. And then Hannity said, I'm getting teared up. Don't you cry, because I'll start crying. Because you think of all those people, 59 of them, their lights are out. And hundreds more injured, some badly injured. And it was a beautiful scene. And yet, just 60 minutes later or so, destruction, death, evil. Joining us now, the great American patriot and a dear friend, John Rich, of course, from Big and Rich. He's been promoting his new album, which is fabulous, called Did It for the Party. And he performed. And thank goodness we have that video. I think it was a gift. That was a gift to see that. John, it's good to talk to you, my friend, on a horrible, horrible occasion.
Yeah, that moment that you're talking about, I'm glad somebody did catch that every single night, Laura, on our stages. For I think it's over 1,000 concerts now. We bring active duty and veterans up onto the stage with us, and then we have ask the crowd to sing "God Bless America." And that night in Las Vegas, it seemed like, you've seen the pictures. It looked like literally every single hand out there had their light up over their heads, singing at the top of their lungs. I've heard some people try to politicize this whole thing, which is about the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. But there's no politics or religion or race or anything else going on in that crowd when you see them singing. That's just Americans singing about America and loving their country and loving the right that they get to stand out there and listen to music and just be Americans. There were people there from literally all over North America. We had Canadians there. We had people from Tennessee, from Texas, from California, Arizona, all over the United States, people that I met. And, the attack on that crowd was an attack on America if I've ever seen it. And like you said, to go from God Bless America to absolute, utter destruction it's just a really tough thing to get your head around.
It is. Well, evil is hard to comprehend. Those of us who are believers always struggle with that. It's C.S. Lewis wrote about it. St. Augustine opined on understanding evil, to the extent there is understanding evil when you believe in God the Almighty. Why can't he just stop all evil? And yet we are left to confront this and hold on to our faith, hold on to our understanding, and it's heartbreaking. Your heart breaks. And I know there was a young man, 25-year-old, who passed away, who you had the chance of meeting right before the show, and tell me about his story.
Yeah, so we do what we call meet and greets before every concert, where certain fans will be able to come backstage and meet Big and Rich before we play. We do it every night. And this night we had, I remember these people so vividly. There was 4 school teachers that came through that were all going out to have as we call it, a Big and Rich time, right? So they were coming out to have fun. There was a Vietnam veteran and his wife who gave us his Purple Heart cap that night in the line. And then I remember this other guy named Sonny Melton. I just knew him as Sonny, but I've now learned his last name, Sonny Melton. He's from Big Sandy, Tennessee. He was a hospital nurse, and his wife was a surgeon. And when the shooting started, apparently he turned his back, got in front of his wife with his back to the gunfire, and took bullets right through the back, and was one of the very first casualties. And, I remember seeing this guy in our line with, his eyes got real wide when he walked up to us, and he's like, man, I'm such a big fan, and he was so excited to be there at the Big and Rich show, and to know that, that was it. That was his last moments on earth. Is this guy that did this, I'm watching the news hearing about a belt-fed 30 caliber machine gun. You know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Well, a belt-fed machine gun. That's like what they had in World War II. It's unbelievable what this guy was doing. And, you talked about evil. There's a Bible verse that says the devil roams around the earth seeking who he may destroy.
Well, seeking the ruin of souls. Seeking the ruin of souls. There's a St. Michael prayer that we say every night.
That's right. Roaming the earth.
Seeking the ruin of souls.
Destroying things. Correct.
Yep.
That's it.
There are a lot of other questions that haven't been answered here. And, the man, Mark Furman was just on with us, and he said, bringing 23 guns in a hotel room, even though it's a sizable hotel room, 2 different gun positions, 22 feet apart. He's a guy with a pretty big gut. Didn't look all that healthy. Older guy. And apparently he ran from one gun position to the next gun position in 4 seconds and was able to, I guess we're led to believe, carry this out and by himself. It's an odd deal. And the phrase overkill obviously is wildly inappropriate here, but it's 23 guns and two different gun positions and 2 different windows, 4 seconds apart, running from one to the next. We need to know more about how this went down. The TikTok on this, which I'm still curious about. The TikTok on the girlfriend in Japan, and he was sending tens of thousands of dollars, according to these sources, to the Philippines. To whom was he sending this money and why? Maybe it was just no big deal, but it's an odd deal. It's odd, very strange.
You know, you're right. I mean, we're going to find it all out. But, you know, in the meantime, you know, music is an interesting thing. So from my perspective, Laura, you know, I was standing on the stage, like you said, about an hour or so before this all started. And, you know, music is maybe the only thing out there. I mean, I used to think it was music and sports, and now sports is divisive, the way they're handling that. Yep. So now it's really music. So music is really it's one of the last common denominators that we all have is music. We can all enjoy that song or that concert together, and we stop arguing about everything. We just listen and have a good time. That video of everybody singing God Bless America, I just am so thankful somebody got that video, because I can describe that to you as to what was going on before the shooting happened, but seeing it it's just so powerful, and I think such something people in America need to hang on to that and go, that's us right there standing in that audience. That's America singing God Bless America at the top of their lungs. That every color, all the religions, and all the different political perspectives represented out there, all singing together in one voice. That's what we got to remember when people try to bust us up into all these little groups to get us all fighting all the time. That's not real. What's real is everybody out there singing at the top of their lungs together. That's real.
Well, I would say that, especially country music fans, there's something deep down, bedrock principles, bedrock feelings that they're not afraid to, express. And it's not, I'm a huge rock and roll fan. Tom Petty's death we're talking about it next hour. It's just unbelievable, age 66. So many rock icons have died over the last couple of years.
Would you like to know what T-shirt I had on the night of the concert in Las Vegas?
What?
I had on my Tom Petty T-shirt that I'd bought at a Tom Petty show in 2001 in Nashville, Tennessee. Had on my Tom Petty shirt. I love Tom Petty.
That's weird. Wow.
Yeah.
That's another. Oh God.
I just want to get home, man. I mean, I'm in Phoenix tonight. We have a concert tonight in Phoenix. So wow. I've got two little boys, 6 and 7, back in Nashville, and my wife's back there. I'm like, man,
you need to get home.
But
you need to get home.
Yeah,
you need to go. You need to go home. This has just been incredibly traumatic. Have you talked to Jason Aldean since the concert?
I haven't talked to him, but before the show, I talked to him out in the parking lot. He was standing out there with his wife, who's almost 7 months pregnant. She's standing back there. One of my other good friends, he's a DJ. His name is DJ Silver, and he plays with Jason Aldean. And I'd just taken a picture with his 6-month-old son. Do you have another minute for me to talk? I don't want to run you over here.
No. I'll cut you off, John. You know me. I've known you for a long time. I'll cut you off like anything. No problem. Go ahead.
So just walk you through this last scenario. So right after the Big and Rich show, we loaded up our bus pretty quick, and we went over to a bar that I have in Las Vegas called the Redneck Riviera, and it's a little live country music bar. So we went over there, and about halfway through us singing over there, I get tapped on the shoulder, and they said, there's multiple active shooters in Las Vegas. You need to shut the music down. So at that point, we thought there were multiple shooters. I shut the music down. I told everybody in my place to get away from the windows. We moved them all over to the other side of the room. And I called my friend DJ Silver, and he actually answered the phone, and he said, man, they have thrown us all into the back of pickups, and we're screeching out of these parking lots, and all I see is bodies laying everywhere where we were just singing. And he said that his 6-month-old son, who I had taken a picture with before the show, was in the hotel room asleep with a nanny during the show, next door to the shooter's room, literally one door down from where the guy had his machine guns aimed out the window. And it took him over 4 hours to find his kid. I mean, just the horrific nature of it. Yeah, think about it.
So his nanny, the nanny will be interviewed. That nanny will be interviewed if she already hasn't been by the police, because they want to know when he punched those windows out, and if they heard the hammer hit the glass. They want to know what the TikTok is, or we want to know what the TikTok is on all of this.
So back at my place, I realized we're sitting. At that point, you think you're sitting ducks because they're saying there's multiple shooters. They're saying they thought there might be one at Bellagio, which is right across from my place. So I ran down to my tour bus and grabbed I have my concealed weapons permit, and I grabbed my Kimber 45 out of there, put it in my belt, and came back up the stairs, walked into my bar, and this off-duty Minneapolis police officer walked up to me and showed me his badge, and he said, I'm a police officer in Minneapolis. I've been hanging out in your bar tonight. Are you armed? Because I'm not. He said, I don't have my sidearm. Do you have one? I said, yes, sir, I've got one in my belt. He goes, can I have it? Because I want to hold point on this door until we get the all clear. So I handed over my firearm to the police officer, and he crouched down behind a table and held point on the front door of my bar for 2 hours.
Well, I mean, you could have been on that stage. You could have been killed. Your band could have been killed. I mean, it's but for the grace of God, go you and go all of us. I mean, we don't know when our number's up. Sadly, I mean, evil to illness.
Very likely that guy had me and everybody else in his crosshairs at some point, just looking at everybody. It's just beyond horrific. Thank God we're around, but all those. Our fans, Laura, are like our family members. We know these people. I mean, we know a lot of them by their first names. We talk to them on social media. We see them at meet and greets. We invite them up on stage with us. The country fan base and the country singers, it's not like other genres. I mean, we are personally in touch and put our hands on them. We love them like family members.
Yeah, you do, and I've seen it up close with you, and you guys are. I'm so glad you're okay. But this was. I think everyone needs the answers to all these questions. So we want to know all the answers. We don't. So this is odd. This is very odd. There's a lot of odd things about this. So we want answers. We want prayer. We want no politics. We want answers, though. John Rich, one of our dear friends here on the Laura Ingraham Show. John, thank you for your perspective. Thank you for sharing that moment with God Bless America, with the country last night. Sean and I almost burst out into tears on the set, and I've had a lump in my throat. Every time I see that, I have a lump in my throat. But you stay safe out there, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show.